Welcome back to the Dr. Bob Martin Show, everyone. Joining us today is our good friend and colleague, Dr. Jim Laval. Dr. Jim, he's a clinical pharmacist and author, a board certified clinical nutritionist, and a true health expert. He's spent over 40 years helping people decode their metabolic health. And Dr. Jim joined us today, and he's going to discuss a very exciting new product line from Wakanaga of America, and that is Kyolic Specialty Series Mushrooms Plus. Dr. Jim, it's great to have you back in the hot seat on the show. How are you today?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Dr. Jim. This is such exciting news from Wakanaga of America with the recent launch of Kyolic Specialty Series Mushrooms Plus, and that's
Right.
why we invite you to come back on the show. I'm excited to discuss this with you today. How did this come about?
Well, I think, Wakanaga's always looking to innovate. And where can they find, I think, interesting compounds that make a difference in people's lives? And I think the step towards mushrooms, I think, is an amazing first step. It's that thought of other remedies with garlic and mushrooms together. Obviously consumers are looking for things that help them in these key categories. And then I think it's one of the hottest topics, right? I mean, functional mushrooms have exploded over the last 5 years. So three key areas, right? Sleep, brain, or like improving focus and immune function. And I think those are, really, when you think about it, those are key things consumers are interested in.
Oh, absolutely. I think I think this is a game-changing type of product, Dr. Jim. I've been telling listeners, we've been doing some series about how the body is this biological masterpiece. And in today's world, the masterpiece, it's constantly under siege. We're more stressed and distracted than any generation in recent memory, I think. And seen a company like Wakanaga, who we all trust for their clinical studies. They step into this functional mushroom space. I think this is massive, and they're not just following this trend, which we know, functional mushrooms are very trendy right now. They're providing at Wakanaga this precision tool with the research, the backing, and this is something that the body can actually do its job. So I want to discuss the why. Why is Kyolic doing Mushrooms Plus, and specifically these formulas with the aged garlic extract?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that there's a lot of, as when you look at botanical medicine, there's a lot of synergy that occurs between different botanical ingredients. So the thought of aged garlic or garlic with mushrooms, pretty important. I think the three areas they focused on are key areas that consumers are interested in. I mean, from ages 20 to 80, the whole thought of stress, cognition, vitality, right? So I think, those are the big areas is, why they were interested in kind of mapping it out with aged garlic, because aged garlic applies to all those individuals as well. Different pathways, different things are going on when you combine aged garlic with these mushrooms. But I think, I think it was a pretty novel idea. And I've talked to the scientists at Wakanaga on multiple occasions, and they're very thoughtful about what they're doing, and that's why I've respected the Wakanaga family for of brands for so long, because the science is really, they lean into the science side.
Hmm. Yeah, they're great with that. And you mentioned the word synergy, and I think that's big here. And I know in my practice, I see so many people taking this shotgun approach to supplements, if you will. They take a little of this, a little of that,
Right.
but and they're just shooting from the hip, trying to get something to stick. And I think by pairing aged garlic extract with these mushrooms, the functional mushrooms, you're Wakanaga is creating this metabolic force multiplier. You're huge in this metabolic space. So the aged garlic extract, we know it's one of the most researched garlic supplements on the planet, and then
Oh,
you're layering this foundation with the signaling, the specific signaling, if you will, of these functional mushrooms. And I think that's hitting this biological sweet spot. We're solving the problem of today with this age old wisdom, and then we got this current science with it. And I think that's huge in this space.
yeah, it is. And and the thing is that honestly, it's one of the most aged garlic extract, kyolic. It's one of the most researched dietary supplements that I know of. Period. In any category. I mean, I don't know that many companies that continue to publish new data on their product, right? And so that's why I just think it's important that we support groups that are really into proving that natural therapies work and they're of value and may even provide better support for people in their everyday lives, right? So I think it's I think it just is absolutely. I'm excited to see these new products out.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned the three different formulas briefly, and
Right.
Dr. Jim, we got a few minutes here before break, but what kind of mushrooms are used in these three different formulas?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they use reishi mushroom on sleep. They use lion's mane for the focus or the smart formula. And then they have a combination of mushrooms for the immune formula. It has chaga, cordyceps, and turkey tails. So, you know, I think once again, super thoughtful on what they selected.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great lineup, an all-star lineup, if you will, in the fungal kingdom, right there. You got some heavy hitters. You're not
Right.
you're not talking about a one random mushroom just placing a product. You're getting these very specific species that have been shown to move that needle when it comes to that biological function, and these are whether we're talking about that neurological support of lion's mane or that deep cellular type of protection of turkey tail. They're not just ingredients at that point, they're biological keys. So we can discuss that in a little bit greater detail. If you want to unlock that higher level of function, you have to lay out those right keys. And Dr. Jim, can you kind of see how those keys, lay those out a little bit for our listeners, just a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first step is if you think of, let's combine it with aged garlic, right? So with aged garlic, you have all this kind of decrease in inflammation signaling that occurs, which is kind of foundational to get people feeling well and having vitality, right? So there's that. And then there's the fact, so on the sleep formula, for example, reishi, which helps with calming the nervous system, reducing sympathetic stress kind of synergistically in a little different way than how aged garlic actually had some early clinical trials. And of course, with the lowering blood pressure, it reduces sympathetic dominance. But reishi is working more, it's supporting the inhibitory side of your nervous system in your brain so that you're really getting this calming signal. And, it's that direct impact on, receptors like GABA, decreasing glutamate excitation in the neurons, really important for getting people to calm down, feel more at ease. On the focus side, I mean, obviously, you look at lion's mane, it's been around for a while. Obviously, it's been out there. And when you improve, decreasing inflammation signaling, improving brain derived neurotrophic factor, improving the kind of like the signaling of concentration and focus through dopamine, all very important. And lion's mane does a great job of supporting that. But once again, remember, you need increased blood flow, you need decreased oxidative stress in your brain, and that's what aged garlic does. So there's that combination of providing better blood flow, better oxygenation, less free radical activity, combined with the effect of the mushroom.
So, Dr. Jim, I want to get into more about the benefits of each of these formulas. Can we just start
Sure.
with we'll start with the sleep mushrooms and just go down the list?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously, when you have reishi mushroom, reishi is a calming extract. So, when you look at medicinal mushrooms, it's like, well, what is it mainly doing? When you can't sleep, it's because of hyperarousal. Unless you have apnea, right? If you got obstructed apnea, that's a different story. But if it's hey man, I can't get to sleep, I can't stay asleep, it's because your brain is hyperaroused. And that means you have to activate the inhibitory side of your nervous system. You're either sympathetic dominant or not. If you're sympathetic dominant, your brain's hyperaroused. When your brain's hyperaroused, that's called hyperarousal of the HPA axis, and that is insomnia. So you want to take something that's going to help dampen that hyper, sympathetic stimulated brain. Reishi does a great job of reducing that stimulation through it, helping the inhibitory neurotransmitters to fire. So things like GABA, super important to kind of help calm things down. And aged garlic extract does the same thing. It's why it lowers blood pressure in multiple human trials. It dampens that sympathetic response. So, reishi, inhibitory cycle to help calm your brain at night, and then be able to allow you to be able to go into a deeper sleep. Aged garlic is going to help with that sympathetic stress as well. Now, the next one is lion's mane. So lion's mane, a lot of different uses for lion's mane, but in this particular thought, it is to enhance focus. You enhance focus through a couple different ways. One, you decrease neuroinflammation so that your brain doesn't feel foggy. Everybody talks about, oh my God, I get to 2:00 and I can't think. I'm not, I'm just foggy headed. I don't like making decisions after 2. My processing speed slower. So decreasing inflammation, great. But the other side is to support, when you decrease that, you support dopamine activation. And dopamine is the neurotransmitter for focus. And so what lion's mane does is help provide a benefit to both of those, dampening that neuroinflammatory response, improving on dopaminergic transmission so that your brain can actually, at 3:00, you can make a decision instead of relying on a triple latte with extra sugar, right? Which is what people end up doing. So I really like, lion's mane's got so much research behind it. So I really like that they chose lion's mane. And then on the immune system, it's a little more complex. All right. You've got chaga, cordyceps, and turkey tail. Well, turkey tail's old school. If you remember Essiac tea, there's turkey tail's been around a long time as a general immune support. So what are you looking for immune support? Well, you want to stimulate your natural killer cells and mature your T killer cells so that they're actually able to go out and fight something off and keep your immune system in balance. Interestingly, aged garlic extract helps to stimulate gamma delta T killer cells. So, which are the active T killer cells, and it does it in the intestine. So when you combine that with the capacity of these 3 mushrooms, each of which kind of support the immune system in a little bit different way, turkey tail's pretty straightforward on stimulating those NK cells and those T cells to go out and find things that don't belong in your body and have the good fight. Cordyceps a little bit more adaptogenic, in that it helps with oxygenation of your tissues in your body. You hold on to your oxygen longer on your red blood cell. And in addition to that, it supports other metabolic functions like kidney function, endurance, stamina. So if you're working out regularly and you go, you know what, when I work out too hard, I get sick. This would be an ideal formula for someone to take because aged garlic extract has been shown to help people to recover quicker from exercise, especially in the over 40 group. And you add these mushrooms to it. Now you get the full potential of that particular, formula because of its ability to help people if they're living an active lifestyle. And if you're not, you're just concerned about getting sick. I don't think people do enough for their chronic immune health. So taking something on a regular basis, combining aged garlic with the mushrooms, so having that kyolic immune mushrooms plus formula really does give you a nice broad spectrum approach.
Yeah, I agree. And folks, we're talking with Dr. Jim Laval, and we're talking about the Kyolic Mushrooms Plus formulas that they've come out that combined the aged garlic extract. And we're talking about Kyolic's Mushrooms Plus Sleep formula, the Smart formula, and the Immune formula. And Kyolic products, they are available nationwide through finer retailers. And if you want to know more information on this great lineup of Mushroom Plus products that you can read the press release, the research behind it, I encourage you to visit kyolic.com. That's spelled KYOLIC.com, KYOLIC.com, or you can call them directly at 800 421 2998. Again, that's 800 421 2998. And I got a lot of great information and specialists that are willing to help you there. That's kyolic.com or 800 421 2998. All right, Dr. Jim, before we just got a minute or so before break, but what part of the mushroom is used in these products?
So for what, there's a lot of different ways you can do mushrooms. What's used from Kyolic is fruiting body. So the fruiting body is what you see on top, right? The mycelium is what's growing underneath. So they use the fruiting body, all organic, all farmed, 40 years experience at doing it. And I think that's the other thing that's important about Wakunaga. They look for the best raw materials possible. So, so it's interesting, right? It's got that, you get that big fruiting body is what we're utilizing to make these.
Yeah, and that's important here because that fruiting body, like Dr. Jim mentioned, is the actual mushroom, and this is where that high potency lives. So Kyolic is giving you that top shelf part of the mushroom. I know there's a lot of questions on mushrooms out there, Dr. Jim. So I want to get into some just rapid fire questions
Sure.
that I think our audience is going to find very exciting. So first off, let's just talk about what are functional mushrooms.
Yeah, functional. Yeah, so functional mushrooms are mushrooms that have health promoting properties. Now, you could say it used to be you could say there's culinary mushrooms, but a lot of people use functional mushrooms as part of their culinary experience now, right? So a lot of people cook with these functional mushrooms as well. But basically, the functional mushroom is one that has a lot of bioactive compounds in it. So the beta glucans obviously help stimulate kind of the dectin-1 receptors, which are really potent for the immune system. Terpenes, other compounds are in there as well. And then of course, there's the other side of fully, medicinal mushrooms like what are being used right now, like the psychedelic mushrooms that all the research is being done on. But you think of these mushrooms, functional mushrooms, just supply the nutrients your body needs in order to feel better, in order to function better, and to be able to be resilient to the kind of the areas that we were talking about, which was sleep, focus, and immune function.
Yeah, you made a good point. There's a lot of research happening on the different types of mushrooms that are out there, including the psychedelic, for instance, with trauma and a
Yes.
whole lot. That's a topic we could do a whole hour on sometime, Dr.
Yeah.
Jim. But today we're focusing on the functional properties of mushrooms and in the Kyolic products. Now, are we talking about, is it containing a powder or is this an extract in these?
Yeah, so it's actually powders are a little bit less potent than the concentrations because like when you create extracts, it actually one, it creates more mass of actives, which really allows you to create more bioavailability and a greater amount of utilization because of the extraction. So, you get optimal potency when you use an extract, which you have to look on the label. When people, list their mushrooms, a lot of times it'll say, chaga powder, reishi powder versus the extracts, which are concentrated.
Hmm. And so if we're talking about this, I know Kyolic made the mention that these products are full spectrum. So what does this mean to be spectrum, and why is this so important?
Yeah, I mean, the full spectrum side, why it's important is to get the full benefit from the mushroom, right? So if you're thinking about, well, gee, I want to use this fruiting body and I want to get all the constituents that could possibly act as signals to either take my body back to homeostasis or to help my body improve performance or to help me fight something, uh, you are better off with a full spectrum compound that is, basically naturally occurring, found in the, in the organically produced mushroom, right? So you're really looking to get the widest amount of bioactives possible.
And another question that's going to come up about the mushrooms is this organic, and is this avoiding those synthetic pesticides?
Yeah, it's a big deal, right? I mean, I think more and more people are getting aware of the value of organic. And so, not all mushrooms in dietary supplements are organic. In fact, it would have to list it. So, you look on the label, just like does it say powder or not? Would it say organic or not? A lot of commercial mushroom producers could use pesticides, especially fungicides or insecticides, because they can be prone to that, to get obviously in order to grow and reduce like pest exposure and lose yield because of that exposure, right? But organic providers actually, they don't use synthetic pesticides. They utilize natural methods, which actually, when you think about it, and here's the thing, Dr. Adam, it's like when you allow that plant or mushroom to grow naturally and fully, like in the organic state, you get that fuller spectrum of nutrients that can be embodied, right? So it should say it on the fact sheet if it's organic or not.
Yeah, and folks, that is your quick checklist on Kyolic Specialty Series Mushroom Plus products, and I want every listener to write down what we just talked about. Go back and listen to it if you need to, and also go to kyolic.com. That's spelled KYOLIC.com, and you can see the research, you can see the products, you can see exactly what's in there. And we have to try to be our own best doctors most of the time. And the industry as a whole, a lot of times, and we're talking about the food industry, wellness industry, there's a lot of stuff out there that's just full of marketing fluff. And Dr. Jim is here today, and he's just given us that clinical, that fluff detector, so to speak. So if there's companies out there that's not transparent about their sourcing, or if they're hiding things in the products, they just don't deserve a place in your supplement cabinet. And Kyolic is checking every one of those boxes because they respect the customer and they respect the science with that. This series, it's a great addition to Kyolic's aged garlic extract lineup. They got a lot of great products. I encourage you to head over to their website at kyolic.com. And Dr. Jim, I want to thank you again for being our guest today. And let me go ahead and remind our listeners where Kyolic Mushroom Plus products, the formulas, are available. So Kyolic Specialty Series Mushroom Plus formulas are available at your local natural health stores nationwide and online. And for more information about Kyolic, or to find that retailer nearest you, again, the website is kyolic.com. You can also call their specialists at their toll-free hotline, which is 800-421-2998. Again, that's 800-421-2998. So, Dr. Jim, we've been talking a lot about the specific mushroom species that are formed in each of these formulas, but I want to talk briefly here because they got a lot of other great ingredients in them. We talked about aged garlic extract, but what do each of these supplements contain as far as those other ingredients go?
Yeah, I think the big thing, just people need to realize when they pick up mushrooms to start, is that make sure that it matches what you're trying to accomplish, right? So a lot, so you may see, oh, um, it's got oregano in it, or it has and a bunch of the nutrients that you should have, like something for your immune system. Maybe, so I think that's the big piece that a lot of times people don't realize. So when you look at the sleep formula, for example, it's got theanine in it, valerian root in it, in addition to mushrooms. So theanine calming, decreases the glutamate side. Valerian's been known as a calming compound, so that's for the sleep formula. And then, of course, with the immune formula, zinc, oregano extract. It's got some B12 in it. Of course, oregano being great as an antibacterial, antiviral. Zinc supported for the immune system. So, really important there. And then, of course, the smart mushroom extract, aronia berries, selenium, B12, in addition to the lion's mane and the aged garlic extract. So, in other words, they're picking compounds that exactly fit the purpose of the formula instead of just seeing kind of a one-size-fit-all effect.
Well, that's great information, Dr. Jim. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you again for joining us and bringing that heat today. And folks, the takeaway is simple. Your health, it needs to be intentional. You can't just hope for energy or focus and sleep. You have to provide those biological conditions for them to exist. And with that, the Kyolic Specialty Series Mushroom Plus line, it's a precision tool designed to help you do exactly that. So don't just settle for fillers. Don't settle for mushroom flavored starch. Demand that fruiting body, demand the science, demand the synergy of aged garlic extract. And for more information, I encourage you to visit kyolic.com or call 800-421-2998. You can also follow them on Facebook at Kyolic Life or on Instagram at The Kyolic Life. I'm Dr. Adam Brockman. I want you to take charge of the physician within and treat your body like the masterpiece it is. We'll see you next hour on the Dr. Bob Martin Show, presented by Health Talk America.